I know a lot of people who met their husbands or wives online and have long-term happy marriages. So several years ago, I was willing to give it a try. I met a guy online with no profile picture, but he seemed nice, was saying all the right things. For the time, no profile picture wasn't that strange, and he listed himself as having a master's degree, being an engineer. We talked for several days before agreeing to meet at an art museum downtown after work. I'm careful, so I ran his phone number through a reverse search, but it came up as a prepaid phone. Okay, I guess. But I did find it odd. I decided to take the bus to avoid having to park, which is difficult downtown. When I met him, I could see why he had no photo. He was not what he described. I'm okay with average looking, no worries. But when you say you're over 6 foot tall, and you're more like 5'9" at best, that feels like deceit. So there he was, short, fuzzy blonde hair, oversized glasses with thick black frames, wearing an ill-fitted, baggy, dark, nondescript suit and tie. Well, gotta give the guy a chance, right? It might sound like I was being judgmental, but honestly, I was just cycling through traits in my head, comparing our conversations to our introduction. Speaking of introductions, he ducks his head when I introduce myself. "Shall we sit in the coffee area?" I ask. The coffee area is in the front of the gift shop, very public. "No," he says quickly. "Let's walk through the exhibits." "Okay," I think, but say, "Don't you want to talk and get to know each other?" "We can do that while we walk," he replies. Well, it was odd. He keeps his head down and away from me at all times during the walk. I can't really get a look at him between that, the bushy hair, and the giant, dark-framed glasses. I ask him questions, but he's very evasive, and he doesn't ask me any questions in return. "You said you're an engineer? Who do you work for?" "About an hour away," he replies, after a long hesitation. He also has a very weird smile, like a smirk. I think maybe he's nervous, but as we walk, it's clear that he's very self-possessed and confident. This is at odds with his shy demeanor, hiding his face. I notice that every time someone else gets close to us in the exhibits, and I'm talking even within 20 feet, he scurries away, turning his face, pretending to look at the next piece in the exhibit. His hands are always behind his back. But at one point, I think, oh my God, he's married. I reconsider the prepaid phone, not wanting to sit out where anyone else can see us, and not wanting to be seen together. It all suddenly makes sense. I decided to end the date. "Let me walk you to your car," he says. "I took the bus," I reply absently. Suddenly, I feel him getting very, oddly excited. The smile gets bigger. "Let me drive you home," he says. Now, I'm not about to get in a car with a stranger, and any man has to know this and respect this. I know nothing about him, not even a last name, or even if his first name was real. I don't know the city or town he's from, his employer, anything. Not even a real phone number. Not even a good look at his face. "No, I don't want to inconvenience you," I say. "Thank you for coming out." And I head out the door. He follows, very closely. "You don't have to walk me to the bus stop," I say. He keeps grinning and following. "I insist on driving you," he says. "No," I tell him. "I'll take the bus. It's okay." "Oh no, you came out here to meet me. I want to be polite." I'm starting to get really creeped out. He's wired. It's a weekday, not a busy time, pitch black because of winter, and it was also cold. The streets were nearly deserted. He pursues me to the bus stop, insisting on driving me home over and over. "Come on, it's cold. I can't let you stand out here waiting for the bus. Let me drive you home." He keeps repeating some variant of this, smirking, clasping his hands behind his back, keeping his face down for what seems like forever. I'm getting this voice in my head that's saying, "Don't show fear, don't show fear, don't show fear," which is getting harder and harder to do. After what feels like an eternity on the street, desperately looking for the bus, he points down an unlit, pitch-black alley that runs between the museum and the building next to it. "Come on," he wheedles. "It's freezing out. My car is parked right there in this alley. Let's sit in there and get warm while we wait for the bus." "Come on. I said no. I told you to leave. Your car won't be any warmer than the street, if it's even parked there, which I doubt." "But then I won't be able to see if the bus is coming," I point out. He smirks. He doesn't have an answer to that. He just keeps repeating and repeating. This is more talking than he did throughout the entire date. "I said you don't have to wait with me," I say, trying to sound like I don't realize something is wrong. His "I know something you don't know" smile is getting weirder and weirder. He's getting more excited. I'm afraid he's going to pull me down that alley as soon as no one is nearby, so I move closer to the edge of the street. He follows, right at my elbow. Finally, the bus comes, and I turn and thank him for coming out. When I get on the bus, I start to shake. My legs feel like rubber. What had he been planning? No wonder he didn't want to post a photo or use a real phone, let me or anyone see his face. I'm fully convinced he planned on shoving me in my car when he walked me to it, and I thank God I decided to take a bus that night. No more online dating for me after that. It was so frightening, I'm still not comfortable posting this under my real name. I'm a single dad who had to move into a new home after my wife passed away from delivery complications. I wanted to be close to family and to get out of the place where everything reminded me of Christy. Finding a new house was actually easier than I could have dreamed. The second place that I looked at was owned by a single mother with a 6-month-old who wanted to sell fast and move back to her hometown, which sounded super reasonable considering my own circumstances. We got along great. As soon as the money went through, she was out the next day, and I moved in. A few nights later, I was up late finishing work when there was a loud, steady knocking. It instantly woke the baby, so he was crying at full volume when I opened the door to a tall, skinny man with a long beard. He smelled like gasoline and looked at me like I was sleeping with his wife. He asked for the previous owner by name, like she still lived there, and I instantly knew the kind of man he was. I have 3 sisters who were very, let's call it, daring in their youth. I stood behind my dad while he got rid of plenty of these guys, so I can recognize their particular breed on sight. It was suddenly very clear why the lady had been in such a hurry to get out. Some mega creep knew where she lived, and she worried if I knew about it, I wouldn't take the risk. Well, she was right. Not after my son had just lost his own mother, but it was done now. Needless to say, the man didn't really believe she was gone. He thought my baby was her baby and wouldn't be fooled. Thankfully, I'd kept the glass door shut and said that I was calling the police as I closed the front door in his face. But he didn't move. I watched him through the window, and he stared right back at me for several minutes before slowly walking away. The police arrived about 5 minutes later and didn't find anyone walking around. I got cameras up the next day, but nothing happened for nearly 2 weeks. I'd almost forgotten about the guy until he showed up on my doorstep at midnight. His banging once again had the baby screaming, but this time I spoke to him through my Ring doorbell. It was the same conversation in more heated tones, and a 911 operator was listening to the whole thing. The guy kept insisting the baby was his, and he wasn't leaving without talking to its mother. A few minutes later, the police arrived. Before making him leave, they told him he wasn't allowed on the property and he'd be arrested if he returned. He didn't have a record, and the cops explained to him that the previous owner was actually gone. So I really didn't expect him to return. A month, maybe 2, went by, and all was well. I forgot all about the asshole and fell into a new routine working from home. Part of that routine consists of a lunchtime nap since my son decided he doesn't enjoy sleeping for more than a few hours at a time. I had just gotten him to sleep and laid down myself when I heard a living room window shatter. I was on my feet in a second and soon realized my phone was still in the other room. Someone was walking over broken glass toward the hallway, meaning there was no way to get to the phone without confronting them. I knew it was the creep, because who else would it be? I pulled the dresser in front of the door. The only option I could think of was to grab the baby and try to get out the window, but as soon as I started opening it, the man was at the door. I could hear the knob turn before the banging started. He never said a word, but the dresser was moving another inch with every impact. I wasn't sure if I should hold it shut or keep going for the window. Climbing out with an infant isn't exactly a fast process, especially while my body was shaking from fear and adrenaline. Ultimately, I did go back to push it closed again, and the drawer's knobs dug into me painfully with each subsequent kick. I begged him to stop. I said I had called the police even though I couldn't. I tried offering him money. I even claimed to know the previous owner's address, but nothing stopped him. With each strike, his breaths became a little heavier, but at least 5 minutes went by without him slowing down. Do you know how long 5 minutes is in terms of attacking a door with your full strength? I was exhausted just trying to hold everything in place, but this guy wasn't showing any sign of quitting. I honestly didn't know what to do. Every worst-case scenario played out in my mind as the dresser continued bruising my arms and back. I was literally on the ground, legs braced against the closet wall and pushing with everything I had. Then I heard the most wonderful voice I'd ever heard in my life. It was a woman yelling, "Freeze, this is the police." Multiple footsteps came charging down the hall, and there was a loud crash as the creep was thrown to the ground. Another officer spoke to me through the door, advising me to stay put until they cleared the rest of the house. Once they had the man outside and knew that he was alone, I gave my statement. Luckily, my neighbor noticed the window on his lunch break, and when I didn't answer the phone, he called the police. Really does pay to know your neighbors. I have a full security alarm now, along with other cameras. The creep has spent a little time in jail, but he won't be there long enough to suit me. I can't afford to move yet again. Somehow, I don't think the restraining order will mean very much to him, but I'm happy to have it anyway. Hopefully, I'll just never have to see the man again. But yeah, that's my intruder story. Thanks for reading.